Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, I'm a mess right now. Tough day. Welcome, everybody, to the DFO DFS show for Monday, March 15th. Case of the Mondays here at the DFO DFS show. We've got an 8-game slate. It's supposed to be a 9-game slate, but it's actually only an 8-game slate. The Kings and Blues were canceled. The Kings got stuck in Denver, so we've got an 8-game slate on our hands here today. Welcome everybody. If you're new to the show, all of these charts that you're about to see can be available to you by joining DFO Premium. You can have them much earlier in the day, and instead of just kind of screenshotting them as I go or whatever it is that you're doing, you can have them much earlier in the day and build your lineups a little bit easier that way. So join DFO Premium if you haven't already. Also, I have just posted a $5 Draftkings contest in the chat. If you want to join us for a little bit of extra fun, it's a nice, easy contest. Only 25 people, so it's not too difficult to win. I think it's like $33 to first place. Nothing crazy, but still a nice little contest, especially if you're just getting into DraftKings. So where's my beer, big dog? No beer today. It's a rough Monday. Feeling the effects. Played my first golf round yesterday of the year, so feeling it a little bit today. And busy day. I think it's just the whole time change things really kicking my ass today. So, but we're gonna still bring forward a good show. Hopefully, win some money tonight. So let's start as we always do up top with the goalies. As you see, obviously Tampa Bay and Nashville are already underway, so not on the main slate, but we've got Buffalo and Washington to kick things off. Carter Hutton was the first goalie off the ice this morning for the Sabres. Vitek Vanacek expected to, or confirmed to start for the Capitals. Unclear who starts the Senators. Matt Murray left last night's warmups. Did not start. Joey Daccord did. DJ Smith did not have an update on Matt Murray this morning. He did say Daccord is ready to go if Murray can't start tonight. So it looks like the rookie could get back-to-back starts for the Senators. For the Canucks, they will go back, unsurprisingly, with Thatcher Demko. Florida hosts the Blackhawks. It'll be Sergei Bobrovsky versus Kevin Lankinen. The Penguins will go with Tristan Jarry versus Yaroslav Halak, both confirmed. Unclear who starts for the Rangers, but expect to see Keith Kincaid, who will be countered by Carter Hart for the Philadelphia Flyers. The Winnipeg Jets will go back to Connor Hellebuck after Lauren Brossoit started on Saturday. Carey Price confirmed for the Montreal Canadiens. Battle of Alberta will be Jacob Markstrom for the Flames, Mike Smith for the Oilers, and then the nightcap is Marc-Andre Fleury for Vegas. No shock there. But Robin Lehner was on the ice today, so maybe he is close to getting back in the crease. Will not dress tonight. But Fleury starts. Devin Dubnyk starting for the Sharks. So, like I said, busy 8-game slate tonight. It's going to be an interesting one. There's a lot of different spots you can go. Obviously, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl on the slate, which always makes things interesting. So we'll break things down. All the different matchups. So again, if you're new to the show, this is kind of our DFO premium 5v5 model. Basically just breaks down all of the team's offensive and defensive numbers, as well as their projected ice time and matchups against opposition teams. So I'm going to try something a little different today, maybe work backwards a little bit for each game and see kind of make it a little bit easier to identify the lines that we want to target. So in doing that, we'll start with Washington and Buffalo. So if we look at Washington and Buffalo's numbers, the worst line defensively, at least for the Sabres right now, is their top line. Although all four lines pretty decent, right around average defensively, if not a little bit below or a little bit above. But no, as much as they're struggling to score offensively, they still have not been too bad of an offensive team. So ideally, you would basically want to target, it looks like their first line, but still won't be a great matchup either way. In terms of the matchup, who's going to see the most of the first line, that would be Washington 1. So that'll be the Ovechkin line for the Capitals. But, the Ovechkin line with Backstrom and Oshie really not producing that great of numbers, slightly above average offensively. So I think they're going to be pretty popular tonight. Everybody just shits on the Sabres right now. It's kind of like the trendy thing to do in hockey circles. So I would imagine that the Capitals will be relatively popular, but it realistically doesn't look like a great spot for them. I definitely think this is a game that they win. Vanacek might get a shutout. The Sabres really can't score goals. They've got Riley Sheahan as their top line center. So they are going to be popular and for good reason, but ultimately it doesn't look like by the numbers like that good of a play tonight. Their numbers aren't great. And if we look at the power play report, they actually have one of the worst power play advantages on the entire slate. The Capitals power play, even though they've got Alex Ovechkin, has not been very good this year, slightly below average. And the Sabres penalty kill has been, okay, right above average tonight. So again, just doesn't look that great. The Capitals don't draw a lot of penalties. The Sabres, one of the most disciplined teams in hockey. So all things considered, Washington looks like a fade for me tonight. especially if they're going to be popular. It obviously fading Ovechkin is never an easy thing to do, especially with a pretty good matchup. Carter Hutton, not a very good goalie, but by the numbers, it doesn't look like this is going to be a super high scoring game. And, even if Ovechkin scores one, I think there's going to be spots, where you can pivot elsewhere and get more production tonight. So, it doesn't look like a great spot. As for the Sabres, I just don't think I can consciously tell you guys to target them. Realistically, the only line that is below average defensively for the Capitals is that top line. So they're going to go head-to-head with the Sabres top line for the most part. As I mentioned, that'll be about 65% of Buffalo ones. Ice time will come against Washington 1. And, I'm just not going to say, hey, let's play Riley Sheehan, So, Taylor Hall one-off maybe. But, he's still, 5,100. It's a decent price for him. But, playing on a line with Tage Thompson and Riley Sheehan, it's going to be really difficult for him to get anything going, even with a slightly positive matchup against Washington 1. So, this game, for the most part, looks like a pretty easy fade for me. If you want to play some one-offs, then I think that's an okay thing to do. Maybe it's an Ovechkin one-off, fine. Maybe it's a Carlson one-off, that's fine too. If you have a bunch of extra money to kind of throw at a defenseman. But overall, from a stacking point of view, it doesn't look all that intriguing, to be honest with you. Do I like Vanacek? Yeah, absolutely. If we look at the goaltender model for tonight, Vanacek grades out as the third best goaltending play tonight. Shot volume could be a potential concern, although the Sabres haven't been too bad. They just literally can't score. So yeah, Vanacek's obviously going to be, one of the top goaltending options, but at 8,400, he is pricey. So it's going to be tough to, fit in all these other top pieces and play him. But if you can, Vanacek, obviously looks like a really good option, obviously a pretty good option in cash as well. So, Taylor Hall, an X point per game player. What happened? He went to Buffalo. He got Sabreized in Buffalo. So it just doesn't look like that great of a game. Even if it, is a 3-1 game, it's not a whole lot going to come out of it, I don't think. Could be wrong, though. Have been before. Vancouver in Ottawa. So Ottawa on a back-to-back. Decord potentially playing 2 nights in a row. Pretty scary proposition. But for whatever reason, the Senators are much better on home ice. And obviously they've been pretty good against the Leafs this year. Not so much against the Canucks. So again, we'll kind of start back to front here. So for the Senators, the way their lineup's currently constructed, most of their lines, actually all 4 of their lines, grade out below average defensively, all of which giving up over 25 scoring chances against. So they're not terrible defensively. Some of these lines, the first and second line are mediocre, slightly below average, but definitely a team that you would like to target. Obviously, a team that is on a back-to-back with a potential rookie goalie playing 2 nights in a row. So if we look at basically no real matchup that scares you off from a Senators perspective. So looking at the Canucks, their second line is really the only one that stands out that is doing anything. The only one that's above average offensively right now. Obviously, Elias Pettersson's still out. But this line's been okay. The expected goals for isn't great. The high danger chance is pretty much right around average, but 32 scoring chances, 4 per 60 is pretty good. So if you want to get exposure to this game because, you think the Senators are going to be, lagging from last night to core back-to-back nights, and I think Vancouver 2 is the best option to target them. And 5v5 score obviously agrees. They're the best line, at least stacking option from a Vancouver perspective. In terms of their matchup, it's going to be basically them going up against the middle 6 of the Senators. So they're going to see the second and third line majority of the time from the Senators. And as I mentioned, not very good. They're the third line, especially that Stützle line, pretty good offensively, but not very good defensively. So that looks like the best matchup for the Canucks tonight. And they're pretty reasonably priced. You've got JT Miller, 5,600, Brock Besser, 5,800. If you want to throw in Niels Höglander as well, he's only 4,200. So 15,600 to full stack them. Obviously, really reasonable if you're building multiple lineups, and you want to full stack a couple lines together. I think that they're obviously one of the more appealing, mid-priced options on tonight's slate. Ottawa 1 actually grades out as the best line in terms of 5v5 score on tonight's slate. Their matchup, 64% will go basically head-to-head with the Bo Horvat line tonight. And the Horvat line, since they've taken Niels Höglander off that line and put Jake Virtanen up there, they've been horrendous. Only 19 scoring chances, 4 per 60, and then defensively just atrocious. Getting caved in the possession battle, giving up 35 scoring chances against. I think they grade out, the worst defensive line on the entire slate. So going head-to-head with Vancouver 1 looks like a really good spot tonight for that Brady Tkachuk line. They're okay offensively. The numbers aren't outstanding. They continue to shuffle their lines. Obviously, there's some combinations that look a little bit better on paper. This one's okay. I think Ottawa 1 is an interesting play. I mean, Norris at 4,100, Connor Brown at 4,000. Neither are. You don't get too excited over either one of them. So maybe it's a Brady Tkachuk one-off. If you don't want to full stack them, but either way, they look like a really strong play, as a full stacking option, but also Brady Tkachuk looks like one of the best one-off plays on the entire slate at 7,000. Obviously, his shot volume is literally, among the best in the league, if not the best, super consistent. So as a one-off in a really good matchup, you got to like him tonight. Like the Horvat line just can't seem to to stop anybody when Jake Virtanen's up there instead of Höglander. So who will Van match versus Tkachuk, Norris, and Brown? Pretty much stands that one for you. It looks like Tkachuk's line will go head-to-head with Horvat, and good matchup for Ottawa 1. Wanted an Ottawa stack, see them spread out with so little correlation. Yeah, that's what the lineup right now. Like we had that one day where we were all excited about the correlation, and then they just broke our hearts. So the way that Thatcher Demko is playing right now, it's hard to get really excited about stacking Ottawa on a back-to-back. That's why I think the only way I really want exposure to this game is either through Vancouver 2 or as Brady Tkachuk as a one-off, maybe as a cash game option, something like that. So not too much more to go into that. Obviously, Thatcher Demko is probably a pretty good goaltending option tonight as well. Grades out as the 4th best option, but also he comes in at 4th under the 3 most expensive goalies on the slate. So if you want a couple $100 of salary savings from Fleury, Bobrovsky, or Vanacek, then Demko obviously looks really good. The shot volume should be among the best in the entire slate tonight. And then Vegas really likes their chances of winning tonight. So he looks like a really, really good goaltending option, obviously. But he will be massively popular. So Florida and Chicago. So last game, Mason Marchment started the game on the Barkov line, but did not last very long. At the morning skate, Duclair was back up there permanently, so it will be Verhaeghe, Duclair, and Barkov, and they were perennial favorites on the DFO DFS show early in the year. Had some really, really good nights with them. They had a really good night when they got put back together the other night, so no signs that really point towards anybody slowing them down tonight. Obviously, the Blackhawks have not been the best 5v5 team, at least defensively, so far this season. So looks like a pretty good night for them. Chicago 2, actually grades out ahead of Chicago 1 tonight. So we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. So in terms of the matchups, Florida 1 as the top line, they're going to be basically going head-to-head with the Patrick Kane line. Most of the night, they'll see a sprinkling of the second and third line as well. But 50% of their ice time will come against Patrick Kane. Obviously we've seen outstanding numbers from Florida 1 throughout the entire season, dominating the puck possession battle, 35 scoring chances, 4/60, 16 high danger, outstanding numbers across the board. The Kane line, meanwhile, below average offensively, which might surprise some people, and then really not that good defensively. And this is with Kurashev on the line. So their numbers are actually a little bit better with Pius Suter. But looks like Kurashev is going to be up there to start tonight. So that makes Florida 1 even more appealing, in my opinion. Kurashev has played a lot on the wing this year. He'll go in the middle tonight between Kane and DeBrincat, but he's going to have his hands full with Alexander Barkov. So that makes this matchup even more appealing. If they put Pius Suter back up there in the middle of the game, it's not like that turns them into defensive powerhouse. So either way, Florida 1 looks outstanding tonight. As I mentioned, Chicago 2 looks really good as well. They just continue to put up insane numbers. Still a relatively small sample size, but this is creeping up to like 75 minutes. And they're averaging 45 scoring chances, 4/60. So their numbers are just through the roof. In terms of their matchup, Chicago 2 is basically going to go head-to-head with either Barkov or the Wenberg line. Neither one, obviously, very good matchup. So, if you want to play some Chicago, I think the best way to do it is probably just, through small pieces of that second line, whether it's a Kubalik one-off is probably what I would do. Kampf and Hagel basically min-price those. So, you could go there. You could full stack them, 9,800, full stack them, but obviously not very I wouldn't be too excited about doing that. But Kubalik, below 5,000 looks like a really, really solid one-off option just because that line continues to produce. The minutes continue to rise, it seems. Some games, like in Dallas, he only played 12 minutes, but 17 minutes last time they played Florida. He did pick up 1 assist. So Kubalik as a one-off, again, looks pretty solid. But the rest of this game, if you've watched this show quite a bit, I'm not a big fan of Chicago 1. I rarely play them because, while they're hot, their numbers just aren't that great. The one thing to consider, though, their price is coming down. So DeBrincat 6,900, Kane 7,600. The price is pretty good. It's hard to fade Patrick Kane, especially at 7,600. The price is really, really low. So if you want to still play him, fine by me. I'm not going to, just because I don't chase the maybe production. He's just gonna have his hands full with Barkov all night. In terms of the power play report, Florida does have a nice power play, pretty good power play. The Blackhawks penalty kills the negative power play score for the Blackhawks tonight. The power play just really hasn't been all that great as of late, and the Panthers penalty kills pretty solid. So just really not a game that I want to target the Blackhawks. I did forget to talk about the power play report. Both Ottawa and Vancouver look pretty appealing on the power play. Both have above average power plays on tonight's slate, and both have below average penalty kills, and both frequent the penalty box quite a bit. So it looks like there should be plenty of chances for both sides in that game, and both power plays are facing pretty brutal penalty kills, which should make maybe the Brady Kachucks, JT Miller's, Brock Besters of the slate a little bit more interesting. Florida one feels like my first time playing them this year. Yeah, if it is, well, get on it, because they look really good tonight. So moving on, we've got the Penguins and the Bruins. I will just quickly go back to the goalies for that last game. So Bobrovsky grades out as the second best goaltender on tonight's slate. Vegas really likes them. Also, in terms of the quality of shots against and the expected goals for, the Panthers have been pretty good defensively, and the Blackhawks not very good offensively. Obviously they've outperformed expectations so far this year, but Bobrovsky looks pretty good. Bobrovsky has been playing outstanding lately, so maybe this is kind of like vintage Bobrovsky coming back. It's hard to trust him still. Maybe it's just some scar tissue from being burned in years previous, but I like Bobrovsky a lot more when he's hovering around 7,800 as 8,300. So I probably am not going to go there tonight. Sandwich between basically right under Vanacek and Demko. I think I just trust those other two just a little bit more based on their matchup, because while it's not a great matchup for Patrick Kane, he's still outstanding. He's still a top 5 player in the league. So still a little bit of a scary matchup for Sergei Bobrovsky. Peugeot and Mata are off the COVID list. Buchnevich and Fox added. Ooh, it's rough for the Rangers. Well, that's going to change things for sure. We're getting to that game here in a minute. But let's go with Pittsburgh and Boston here first. So Pittsburgh 1 grades out as the best in this game. Boston 1 as the second best. All other depth pieces below average. Basically those two lines are, going to avoid each other for the most part. It looks like the depth pieces of the Penguins, for the most part, will go up against the Bergeron line. Really no hard matching from Pittsburgh as of late. So, nothing that you can really chase. The only thing I guess you can look at is 44% of Boston 2's ice time will come against Crosby, and that conversely turns into 34% of Crosby's ice time against David Krejci. So we'll look at that matchup first. The Crosby's lines numbers pretty solid. They're actually kind of coming down. They haven't been great lately, so they are coming down a little bit. They're not like the guaranteed plug and play like they were there a couple weeks ago. So in this matchup, it does look like I would expect the Bruins to be, alive tonight. They had an absolute stinker against the Rangers on the weekend, and I'd expect them to be a little bit more motivated tonight. So in that matchup with the Krejci line, slightly above average. Offensively, pretty good defensively. So it doesn't look like a great matchup for the Crosby line. I've been fading Malkin all year long. Obviously, they've caught fire a little bit, but their offensive numbers are still just terrible, well below average. So, they're going to see quite a bit of the Bergeron line tonight too. Really not all that appealing. The Boston Bruins bottom 6 isn't great defensively, but top 2 lines aren't going to see a ton of them. Maybe 40% of their ice time, so they could obviously do some damage in that small amount of ice time. But overall, it doesn't really look like anything worth chasing. And the Penguins bottom 6 is just not good offensively at all. So again, just kind of looks like a lower scoring game. It's really hard to pay up. What do we got? 20,700 for Pittsburgh 1 or 24,400 for Boston 1 on a slate with some better lines and better spots. It just doesn't look like it's the night to play either one of these lines. Obviously, I've been on them quite a bit in different slates, but tonight just doesn't look like one of those slates. So, all right. So New York and Philadelphia, this is a game that I did have some interest in. I do. So Philadelphia 3 actually grades out as the top option on the slate. Philly 1, slightly above average. But now that Buchnevich is out, it could change things. I don't know if I don't know what they're going to do. I would imagine that Kako just goes up to that top line, or maybe he goes to the second line and Blackwell goes to the top line. Maybe they play Lafreniere on the right wing. I'm not really sure, but it's hard to say. And really, it doesn't change things that much either way, because the Rangers have not been very good defensively this year. The Zibanejad line will definitely take a hit defensively without Buchnevich. If they put Lafreniere up there, their defensive numbers won't be nearly as good, but they're still even slightly above average. So, in terms of the matchup, so Couturier is basically going to go head-to-head with the top two lines. It's basically top six versus top six, bottom six versus bottom six. It's pretty much all you got to look at in this game. So in terms of that, Philly 1 is obviously being red hot. Their numbers are okay. They're not outstanding. The Rangers top six is not really what you want to target when you're targeting the Rangers. Their bottom six is much worse. So you probably are going to want to play Philly 3 for that reason. You're going to want exposure to the third and fourth line of the Rangers, beat them up a little bit, and that's what Philly 3 is going to get to do tonight. So basically, Philly 3 is going to completely avoid the Zibanejad and Panarin lines and then play almost all of their ice time against the bottom six of the Rangers. So that definitely looks like a spot where they can absolutely smash. Their numbers are pretty solid, all things considered, dominating the puck possession battle for the most part. 2.69 expected goals for, highest on the Flyers, 25 scoring chances against, 15 high danger, highest on the Flyers as well. So really looks like a good spot for Philly 3 as a nice value option tonight. Voracek just 3,900, Claude Giroux just 4,600, Nolan Patrick 2,500, 11,000 right on the money to full stack them. So they're pretty intriguing. Philly 3 full stack or leave off one of Voracek, Patrick. It all depends on your lineup construction, what you want to do. So if you full stack them, the good news is they play together in the power play. The bad news is they don't play on the top power play unit, but they still get quite a bit of usage. Obviously, you're not going to just leave Giroux on the bench on the power play. They just kind of make two balanced units. They both play quite a bit and kind of ride the hot hand. So, depends on what you're doing, depends on the build. If you're going to leave one off, it would be Patrick for me. He just doesn't have the offensive upside. It's not like Voracek is massively overpriced compared to Patrick. So if you're going to leave one off, it would probably be Patrick. But if you want to full stack them, there's really no reason not to. They're super cheap and they have good correlation on the power play, obviously. So then the other thing is, like, who do you play with them? You can play Provorov because he's really not that expensive either. He's just 4,300. He's by far the most consistent option to play with them. And at just 4,300, he's definitely my preferred because it's not like he's crazy expensive. He's been blocking shots like crazy lately. So his floor is really good and his ceiling is outstanding. If you want to try to squeeze in some other crazy high players, you can go with Sanheim. He's just obviously doesn't have the same floor as Provorov does. Probably not the same ceiling either. So obviously you'd want to go Provorov if you can. If you can't, Sanheim's just fine. So really like them. From the Rangers side of things, obviously they looked pretty solid there in Panarin's return the other night. But, and you got Carter Hart, who's just been struggling like crazy lately. But, to me, I guess the issue is now that Panarin or that Buchnevich is out, it's hard to really get an idea of what's going to happen with the lines. I would probably, if you want to play the Rangers and you're like, okay, maybe you want a game stack because this does look like a game that could be high scoring. I think you basically just play Panarin and Strome maybe, and then if you want a full stack, so maybe they move Kako up. If they move Kako up, then obviously you got to like what he offers at 3,000. If they move Lafreniere up, you got to like what he offers at 3,000. But I'm not like Zibanejad did look better the other day. And Kreider was great while Panarin was out. Offensively, though, like together, their numbers just haven't been that good this year. New York 2's numbers haven't been that great either, but they are the best among the Rangers. So if I was going to play the Rangers because I'm like, Carter Hart sucks right now, then it would have to be through New York 2. And Panarin's pretty reasonably priced at 6,400, just 5,000 for Ryan Strome. So if that's how you want, if that's, if it's fuck Carter Hart night, then, go with New York 2. And again, just based on the matchups, it doesn't really matter. Like Zibanejad and Panarin are both going to see their fair share of Sean Couturier, which is the matchup you want to avoid. No way on the Rangers anymore because lines will move all game probably. Maybe not though. Like they've dealt without they've dealt with a lot of these players all game, like all season long, right? People have been shuffling and they've been pretty consistent with their lines. Kakko's played in that top six. Lafreniere's played in that top line. Like if they move one of them up, I'd expect it to stick for the most part. All right, Winnipeg and Montreal. So these seem to be like two teams kind of heading in opposite directions. The Canadiens kind of looked like they figured it out there for a little bit. Then they went into Calgary. And Sutter has the Flames playing really well, shut Montreal down. Meanwhile, the Jets, they're playing very good hockey right now. Pretty successful trip to Toronto. I would say, like, obviously maybe not quite the results they were looking for, but they looked good. That's all you can really ask for. So in terms of this game, both top lines grade out the best, but Montreal 3-2, Winnipeg 2, they all look solid. In terms of the matchup, not a crazy hard match situation really. It's basically just going to be top nine versus top nine. With the fourth lines seeing each other. Obviously, it looks like Winnipeg 4 will see a little bit of the Nick Suzuki line, but nothing crazy. So mostly just top nine versus top nine. You basically are just going to want to play the line kind of with the best offensive numbers, I would imagine, would be the way to do this, because when you look at the Canadiens, pretty good defensively. They're obviously an outstanding 5v5 team, but none of these numbers really stand out as bad. They're pretty much all the exact same. They're carbon copies. Same thing kind of goes for the Jets. They're all pretty bad defensively. So, on paper, the Canadiens look really good. But Phil Deneau is a game-time decision. You weren't going to play Montreal 3 anyway, so just forget about them. Let's focus on the top two lines. I want to lean towards the second line, which is the Toffoli, Kotkaniemi, and Gallagher line. Toffoli's price finally coming down a little bit, 6,600. Gallagher just 5,600, and then Kotkaniemi 3,400. So 15,600 to full stack them. They are my preferred play if you're going with Montreal. They, like I said, they're going to see basically just a mix of the Jets top six, which really is the three worst lines. Obviously, defensively, they're pretty much all the same, not very good. So that looks like the most intriguing. You just play the best offensive line from the Canadiens, which is Montreal 2. On the other side, Ehlers, Connor, and Dubois, love all three players. Love them together. The numbers just haven't been that outstanding, though, so I would probably just stay away from Winnipeg 2 if I'm playing Winnipeg and go up to Winnipeg 1. Paul Stastny's been red hot playing on that top line, but still just 3,700. Mark Scheifele, 6,100. Blake Wheeler, 5,600. And they all play together on the top power play unit. So you get that correlation. You don't have to worry about trying to fit in other weird pieces. You just kind of plug and play them and hope that they stay hot. Obviously, two really good goaltenders. Prices sort of figured things out since they made the coaching changes there in Montreal. Hellebuck's obviously outstanding. He's, just insanely good in Toronto. So I don't love this game really. Like I think that, I do like Winnipeg 1 and Montreal 2 from like a personal standpoint tonight. I think this has like a kind of the feel of like a potential like 3-2 game. Doesn't look crazy high scoring. I do like Hellebuck a lot. I think that's why I want to like Montreal, but I really like Hellebuck at 7,600. He's just playing really well right now. The shot volume is going to be through the roof. He has potential to hit that 35 save bonus on DraftKings and win tonight for sure. So I want to like Montreal more, but I think I'm just too tied into Hellebuck tonight that I can't do it. But if you're not like me and you're not feeling the same way, I do think Montreal 2 is a really good option. If you want to go with Montreal 1, they're fine too. But Montreal 2 just looks a little bit better. But Drew Mann 3,800, Suzuki all the way down to 4,300, and Anderson just 5,100. So if you want that salary savings, you want that 2,000. Oh, what is it? like $2,000 savings off of Montreal 2, then that's fine too. But Montreal 2 would be my preferred. Tarmo Runanen been recalled from the Wolfpack and he's expected to make his NHL debut tonight. Yeah, he'll probably just plug in on the fourth line, I'd imagine. I don't even know who that is, to be honest with you. I've never heard of him. Got a crazy name though. All right, so yeah, we've got the Battle of Alberta. Obviously, it's hard to get a read on this game, because I think they've played each other 3 or 4 times this year, and Hellebuck is way too inconsistent. One night he hits 30, next night negative 30. Yeah, in the middle of the season, fine. He's coming off of just 2 insane games in Toronto and looking like the Vezina candidate that you expect him to be. So you can say that about like a Sergei Bobrovsky maybe, but Connor Hellebuck, he had some struggles there in the middle of February, but he's one of the best in the world, and I'm not too concerned about it. And the Jets seem to have found something here. Like their top 6 is maybe it's among the best in the league. So I'm not going to worry about maybe some inconsistency issues with Hellebuck because he is still just one of the best in the world. I mean, you can look at Vasilevsky. Like, he literally didn't give up goals for like 3 games in a row and then gets shelled in Detroit. It's like it happens. But most nights they're going to be great. Anyways, I don't really know. This game's weird because I think they've met 3 or 4 times. A couple have been high scoring, a couple have been low scoring. What's going to happen tonight? Not sure. Sutter, though, however, has had 2 really good games. He's kind of sucked the life out of things. They've been pretty boring, low event. And I would imagine that's what he's going to want to do tonight. You've got Connor McDavid and Leon coming in your barn. You're going to want to make it like low event as possible. So I would imagine that this is maybe a night where you could get away with fading Leon and Connor in GPP. In cash, it's going to be harder. But in GPP, it might be an okay night. They still grade out, obviously outstanding. And here's why. So here's the other issue too. So all we have to go off of right now is a 2-game sample size of Sutter behind the bench. And he didn't hard match really at all. But he was playing against Montreal, who has a much more balanced lineup. So this is kind of based off of what he did against Montreal, where with McDavid in town, I would imagine that it's basically going to be 50% of Elias Lindholm's ice time and 50% of Michael Backlund's ice time are going to be against that McDavid line. They're going to split those duties, and basically this 34% is going to turn to like 0%. I would imagine that there's not going to be a whole lot of Sean Monahan. But if he sticks with this, I'm not really hard matching anybody, then, maybe the only thing he's really doing is 4th line against 4th line. So if that sticks, I think that's good for McDavid. It helps. You're going to want to get McDavid out there against the Monahan line and against the 4th line as much as possible because the Lindholm and Backlund line really, really good defensively. So, these teams obviously have this information. I would imagine that you'd want to get Backlund and you'd want to get Lindholm out there against McDavid as much as possible. And even if it is, like, McDavid's pretty much matchup proof, like with Draisaitl and Swing, their numbers are insane. Over 4 expected goals, 4 per 60 is the only line I've seen do that this year. 39 scoring chances for 18 high dangers. The numbers are just insane across the board. So, they're obviously going to be massively popular. But with Sutter kind of sucking the fun out of things, I think you can get away with fading them tonight. I don't think you're going to see these like massive blow-up games like they just had against the Senators. I think that they'll at least be able to keep them reasonably within check tonight. So, it's obviously never fun to say fade McDavid and Draisaitl. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do it when I finally, put those, especially if you're playing one lineup, like how do you do it? But on a busy slate, maybe you can get away with it. So all I'm saying, I guess, is if you were building lineups without them, I think you're okay. If you were set on playing them, though, then play them because they are matchup proof for the most part. So hopefully that just helps you make that decision, and hopefully it works out for the best, but still obviously insane. But at that price, you need them to have big nights. So, if they get 1 goal, fine, but as long as they're not getting 4. Trouba or Miller if Fox is out as a cheap defenseman. Both. I don't really know. I would imagine it's Miller that moves up to the top power play unit. But I don't know for sure. I would imagine it's Miller, though. But yeah, they're both definitely solid. I mean, what do you got in terms of price for Miller? 3,100. Yeah, he's outstanding. Trouba 4,200. So yeah, I would just probably play Miller. He's cheaper, and he might be the one on the top power play unit. So no doubt about it. Like 3,100 for him tonight. He's lock and load him. That's a really good price. So yeah, and then from a Flames perspective, obviously the Oilers haven't been great defensively. This top 9 really not doing much defensively, but the Flames offensively aren't doing much either. So I think, like I said, that if Sutter just tries to suck the life out of this game and make it low event, it might limit McDavid, but it's also going to limit what the Flames are going to do. So really just not a whole lot of interest here in the Flames. In terms of the 5v5 score, their 3rd line grades out the best. But if he says 50, Backlund ends up seeing 50% of his ice time against McDavid, that's going to change things, and that number is going to come down. So I think the Flames are going to try to make this a 2-1 hockey game, basically is what I'm saying. And if that's the case, you're not going to want to play the Flames or the Oilers. So, yeah, I kind of keep glossing over the power play report here, so I'm just going to go back quickly. Florida, we talked about them. They look really good on the power play tonight. It's pretty solid. The power play has been good. Blackhawks penalty kill below average. So, more power to Barkov tonight. Pittsburgh and Boston both grade out meh. pretty much right below average. Nothing really. Both teams have pretty good penalty kills, especially the Bruins. So no real interest. We didn't have a lot of interest in that game to begin with. The Flyers power play looks horrible tonight. The power play has just not been very good. Rangers penalty kill has been solid, but the Rangers don't really offer much either. So again, nothing crazy there. From the Winnipeg point of view, like I said, I like them a little bit more than the Flames tonight, and on the power play, it looks to be the case as well. The power play is not actually that great, slightly below average, but the Canadiens' penalty kill is a nightmare. So more power to the Jets tonight. And then in the Edmonton-Calgary game, both look very good. The Flames, not a very good power play, but the Oilers have a terrible penalty kill. So I would probably, in that situation, though, I'd rather have, be going, I'm not going to play, even though they have a decent power play score, I'm not going to play a power play against a shitty penalty kill just because it's a shitty penalty kill. Like, you have to have a decent power play to still score, and the Flames don't right now. So I was already more on the Oilers anyway, and they have an awesome power play. Obviously, Flames penalty kill is solid, but if you're playing the McDavids and Draisaitls, it doesn't really matter. They're going to dominate 5-5. They're not going to leave the ice in the penalty kill. So Del Miller will go to top PP. I mean, they haven't been in the situation, so I really don't know. It could be true, but for sure, I haven't seen the situation arise, so it's really tough to even guess. And then the goaltenders, Mike Smith grades out okay, 5th best option on the slate. To me, he's been obviously really good. Could be I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, so I think he's solid. I still would probably prefer to play Connor Hellebuyck, a couple $100 cheaper, just because I think that he's going to see just so many more shots if the Flames do make this a low-event game. Markstrom obviously grades out meh. The Oilers are stacked offensively, so going up against them, you're never really going to grade out that well. And I guess just going back to Clamp's comment about Del Miller was helping hit power play, even if he doesn't, at 3,100, he should see a ton more ice time at 5v5, and that should just help him, meet that value easily anyway, regardless. So even if he doesn't, I still think he's a great play at 3,100. Last game of the night, the Golden Knights and the Sharks. So problem is that's the last game of the night, but Chandler Stephenson is a game time decision. In the game day skate, Cody Glass skated between Pacioretty and Stone, so the lines didn't change at all. It was just Cody Glass. So if that's the case, obviously Glass hasn't really done a whole lot this year, but if he skates in that top line at 2,600, he's obviously a really good value play. The problem is you're not going to know until the game starts that he's even going to be there. So unless you build your lineup in a way where you can pivot off of him if he doesn't play, or pivot to him if he does play, then fine. But just kind of something to keep in mind if that's something that you would want to go to. Obviously, the Sharks are not the greatest defensive team, but in terms of the overall 5v5 score, Vegas 2 grades out the best, Vegas 1 second best, and then Sharks top 6, still slightly above average. But realistically, the Sharks have been much improved as of late. Obviously, really good numbers across the board offensively for the top 2 lines of the Golden Knights. But the Sharks have figured things out a little bit defensively, and might not be quite the matchup that you'd think. Let's start with Vegas 2. They grade out the best. They're basically going to go head-to-head with Couture most of the night, and the Couture line's been solid. We've seen them shut down McKinnon's in some games, so it doesn't, even though Vegas 2 grades out the best, it doesn't look like the best matchup, really. It's still a matchup they can obviously win because their offense numbers are so good, but so is the Couture line. So I'm not in love with Vegas 2 tonight. Vegas 1, they're going to see a little bit more of the Hurdle line, which is, again, really good defensively. Not really good, but solid. Nothing that jumps off the page that you want to target. The really poor line defensively for the Sharks is their 4th line, but then you're going to get, Vegas 3 is going to see 27% of them. They're all going to see a sprinkling of them, but Vegas 3, so, maybe Alex Tuch as a one-off, fine, but he's up to 5,400, so I'm not in love with it. It's just really, I want to love this game more. I want to be more interested in the Golden Knights because I think that, they probably win this game. They probably score a few goals. But I think there's more obvious spots on the slate that I'm probably going to go. So, I think if these numbers will take a hit if Cody Glass is, if he replaces Stephenson. So they would, he's obviously a cheap, nice punt or whatever, but it would make Vegas 1 as a full stack less appealing. So if you want to play Vegas, I think going with the second line, which is Marchessault, Carlson, and Smith. Pretty reasonably priced as they always are. $5,500 for Marchessault, $4,700 for Carlson, $4,400 for Smith, $14,600 to full stack them. So that'd probably be the only way I go. Fleury's been too good for me to really get too excited about the Sharks, although they remain underpriced, especially Hurdle, who is at least about 4,000 now. He was like 3,400 on the weekend, which is hilarious. So like obviously you can go there just because he's super cheap, but it doesn't look like a great matchup. Obviously the Golden Knights are pretty good offensively. Let's be real here. The Sharks shut down the Ducks. Isn't Vegas coach one of the Sharks fired? Look out. Yeah, I'm not going to read too much into coach revenge as a narrative. Like, yeah, they shut down the Ducks, but I mean, I'm just looking at the numbers. Like, obviously, just shutting down the Ducks doesn't mean that this is their full season. Those numbers are pretty good. That's what I'm going by here. So yeah, like obviously Vegas is intriguing, no doubt about it, because they're good. But I'm just here to tell you that maybe it's not quite as good of a matchup as you might expect. Just looking at the Sharks as a whole, they've definitely started to lock things down a little bit tighter than they had at the start of the season. So Fleury grades out as the best goaltender on the play on the night. Among the best odds on the entire slate. Still going to see a decent amount of shot volume as well, which helps boost him to the top. It's Dubnyk. I was looking for Martin Jones. And Dubnyk, not good, obviously. No, long odds. Expected to get a lot of shots, but lots of goals against. And he's just not been all that great. He's had his moments, but 904 save percentage, 303 goals against average on the year. So yeah, quick look at the power play. Both power plays grade out slightly below average. So again, it's not a game I love. Like it's a weird night because there's not a whole lot of spots that I really, really love. So you got to just kind of maybe just build one lineup tonight. Like I'm gonna and play the ones you do. So yeah, like obviously Edmonton one grades out great. It's mostly due to their insane offensive numbers. It's matchup wise, maybe not best. And like obviously overall the matchup numbers from the Flames is it's only been 2 games under Sutter, so you don't get to look at the whole thing of like what they're looking like under Sutter. We don't have that sample yet. Eventually we will, and maybe they'll be much better defensively, but until then, kind of just got to ride with what we got. So yeah, 4-1 obviously looks outstanding. The price is ridiculously good, so you got to love them tonight. And then Philly 3 looks outstanding in terms of value as well, but there are some other spots too, like Winnipeg 1, their price is really good. They're going to struggle a little bit at 5v5, I'd imagine, just because the Canadians are really good at 5v5, but on the power play, they should smash. So got to like Winnipeg 1 tonight. It's a lot of good spots. In terms of defense, I will talk about them. So obviously now, K'Andre Miller, one of my favorite punts of the night without question. I think that, Provorov's probably my other favorite. I really like pairing him with Philly 3 tonight, and his price is so good. Like, he was so cold for a while, and, like, nobody played him at the top. And then now he's 4,300. He's way too cheap. So, like, Provorov and K'Andre Miller together, if you're game stacking, looks amazing. And hopefully that game just blows up. In terms of other cheap defense options, though, I got to be honest with you. I hadn't had a chance to really dive in too deep to the defense before I came live, unfortunately. But it doesn't look like there's too much. Like I still do like Sanheim at 2,900. There's a lot to like there. If you're playing Edmonton, you got to still look at the Tyson Berries of the world. If you're playing Florida 1, you still got to like what you get out of Aaron Ekblad. Maybe you play, if you can't afford them, maybe you play Mackenzie Weegar. Our boy Gustav Forsling, he's getting a little too expensive where you can just plug and play him, where he was at like 2,600. So maybe you go with pay up a little bit more for the extra minutes with Weegar. He's 500 more than Forsling now. Do I really like that Philly 3 spot? Yeah, I think it's a really good spot. I do. And it's just like, it's weird, right? Like it's Philly 3, but it's Claude Giroux. Like he's probably still their best player. Sean Couturier is obviously amazing too, but Giroux's, he's been great. He's been solid as of late too. So, it would be nice if they didn't have like Nolan Patrick on that line. He's not great, but if they had somebody better, but it's Philly 3. So, they lengthen out that lineup and it allows that line to see a lot of the bottom 6 of the other team. And tonight, that's a great matchup. So I do really like them. Jordy Ben back near the minimum. Yeah, he is near the minimum. He's 2,600. He's been solid. Always blocks a lot of shots. Gotta like what he brings. What's his face there? Hamonic. Travis Hamonic's been really, really good too, blocking a shitload of shots. So he's obviously really nice at 3,700 too. People are going to want exposure to that game. And, playing a Hamonic or playing a Jordy Ben, definitely solid as well. McNabb and Whitecloud, both mid-price, getting 20-plus minutes. Yeah, McNabb's kind of just come right back in and played a ton. He is the minimum. Played 22 minutes the other night. Obviously not a guy you're going to get a lot of offense out of, but you should get a bunch of block shots out of Brady McNabb for sure. And then Whitecloud, he's just been kind of steady Eddie. Late night hammer. Do I like Burns or Theodore? You got to go with Theodore because he's just, he's 5,700. He's $1,100 cheaper. So, Burns isn't even on the top power play right now. It's Erik Karlsson. So, Theodore's price, if he ever just turns into like one of those vintage Shea Theodore performances where he goes out and has like 7 shots at 5,700, he'll be the best defenseman on the slate by a mile. So, he's obviously the shot volume is not quite where it used to be last year, but he's got points in 3 straight at 5,700. I think I would go him. So that looks pretty solid. But yeah, all right, come up on 48 minutes here, so I am going to head out. Good luck to everybody tonight. I'm going to share the contest one more time. Make sure we fill it up because if we don't fill it up, it doesn't run. And then, hopefully everybody enjoyed the show. Hopefully everybody smashes that like button. Hopefully everybody returns tomorrow with more money in their bankroll than they had today. Good luck to everybody. Please smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already on your way out. I will see you guys back here tomorrow, same time, same place. Good luck tonight. Whoa, it didn't work? Oh, it didn't get sent to Periscope. Well, if you're on YouTube, click the link, join the $5 DraftKings contest tonight, fill it up. Good luck. See you tomorrow.